Each morning the market of Kwun echoed with barter and laughter. Among the vendors moved a young woman who never stayed late. She had a calm way about her and the best fruit in the stalls. People called her by a single name, Amara, but none could say where she slept at dusk. She arrived with dawn and vanished before evening, and the mystery only deepened the villagers' admiration. Whispers followed Amara like dust trails. Who was she? Where did she go when the sun fell? She answered customers with a soft smile and returned no personal questions. The questions fed the gossip, but her gentle kindness kept the talk fond rather than cruel. People loved her wares and her calm, and so the mystery grew like a rumor watered by idle hours. One market day, Bayo stopped at Amara's stall. His eyes lingered. He was struck by her quiet manner and found excuses to linger. They spoke of weather, of harvests, and the small courtesies that grow into friendship. He asked for her company on a dusk walk once. She allowed a short passage, and he left feeling the tug of new longing. As they walked, a sudden chill ran over Bayo. He felt a cold hand press at his shoulder. When he looked, there was no one. Fear rose like a tide in him. Amara remained composed, walking as if on a path she had always known. Bayo fled home with his heart pounding, and though he tried, he never returned to the stall. The market missed his laughter. Amara kept her secret face. Only the oldest knew that Amara's family lived beyond the tree line in a realm where forms shifted like light on water. They were kin of the forest, not quite like the villagers, not quite like wild beasts. Amara had chosen human days and quiet labor, but old ties tugged at her, the memory of nights when she belonged to another rhythm. Longing for independence, Amara once knelt at the village shrine of Ori, a gentle spirit who heard wishes asked in earnest. She asked to live among the people and forge her own life. The spirit answered, freedom could be granted, but all freedom calls for a price. Amara accepted the risk and rose with a resolve that made her both lighter and more cautious. Months later, a traveling cloth merchant named Kellen came through. He saw Amara at her stall and was immediately impressed by her grace. He wooed her with stories of distant markets and fine life. He offered marriage and the promise of comfort. Amara politely accepted his courtship, tempted by the thought of belonging beyond the market. Kellen brought Amara to meet his family. His mother's eyes narrowed when she asked about Amara's past. Rumors of strange nights and the cold touch reached the well-bred household. Kellen's parents refused the match, fearing disruption. Amara's heart bruised. She had hoped love might erase suspicion. She returned to the market, more guarded than before. Distressed, Amara returned to Ari and asked if the shadow of rumor could be lifted. The spirit answered that a calm heart and steady deeds could change fate, and warned that if anger ever took root in her, the old powers could return tighter than before. Amara vowed to keep peace in her chest and to keep living honestly. Time softened wounds. A villager named Ikenna met Amara by the stream. He listened without prying, offered no promises beyond honest company. Gentle and patient, he visited often. Amara felt something like trust grow between them, a slow, careful flame that was not dazzled by rumor or grandeur, but by quiet constancy. Ikenna asked to share her life, and Amara, mindful of her vow, permitted hope into her life. They planned a small wedding, not for show, but for the promise it made between them. The village buzzed with the news. People who once wondered now waited with blessing and curiosity. this quiet match felt different. The wedding day arrived under a bright sky. Music and color spilled through the square. Amara wore a simple dress, and the villagers sang as the couple shared vows. For one golden day, it seemed the past had been forgiven. Hope settled into many faces. The elders nodded, offering blessings with the full weight of their years. When the festivities ended and the house fell quiet, something shifted. Amara felt a long-held sensation curl inside her like a hidden root. It rose as a strange warmth and a shiver together. Before dawn, her shape moved in a way villagers had not seen. The bed where two people lay became a scene the village would remember. At sunrise, Ikenna woke to a sight that made his breath stop. Amara was no longer upright in the way he knew. She had shifted into a great serpent-like presence, long and scaled, her eyes weary and sorrowful. The scene stunned the household, terror for some, sorrow for others. Ikenna's first instinct was to run, but something deeper in him held. Ikenna's first shock gave way to raw fear and then to a confusion of feelings. He stumbled into the lane calling for help. The neighbors rushed in, half expecting a trick. The household emptied as the scale of the image, a beloved woman made strange, pressed on every heart. The elders were summoned. The elders asked the serpent to come before them. With a sound like a long breath, the creature, Amara, uncoiled to the center and spoke in a voice that carried all the sorrow of her life. She told of her forest kin, of the choice she made to live among humans, and of a protective prayer that had both freed and bound her. When Amara revealed that a family prayer had turned bitter when she chose a human path, the crowd listened. She explained that the forest kin had tried to frighten suitors away, and when separation was final, a grief curse had been spoken in a language older than the village. It had made her form slippery between human and serpent at the edges of commitment. The elders turned to Ikenna and asked if he had anything to say. He faltered, then admitted something heavy, a fear and a flaw of his heart. He confessed that at one time he had thought a prosperous match might help his family's standing, but that seeing the real Amara had changed him. He had not planned to exploit her. Still, truth was now necessary. Elder Namdi called upon the old laws. Deception brought consequence, but truth and willingness to atone opened a path to healing. You who broke trust must repair it in presence of the harmed, he declared, invoking a remedy that would not be cruel but would teach responsibility and bind the two in service rather than punishment. The elders announced that Ikenna would remain by Amara's side and share the life he had pledged to love. He was to go with her to the forest, learn its language and customs, and prove his care by service, not by forced exile, but by chosen work, tending the kin, learning the rites, and living openly in the world he once imagined using. It was both consequence and chance. Amara and Ikenna left the village at dawn. The path to the forest felt different than the path to the market. It smelled of damp earth and deep green. Ikenna walked with both humility and determination. He had to prove himself to the kin he had once feared and to the woman he loved, who wore both human compassion and the forest's strange strength. They reached a clearing where Amara's kin kept their dwellings. The forest folk watched from the trees. Some bore animal traits, others shimmered like leaves in human shapes. The kin could be steadfast and stern, and they tested Ikena with questions that pierced beyond words about motives, patience, and humility. To earn trust, Ikena learned small things first: how to grind bitter leaves for a healing brew, how to braid vines without harming sap, how to carry water through the shadowed ways. He rose before dawn, labored humbly, and slowly the kind's reserved stares softened into measured nods. Actions began to speak where speech alone would not. One evening, after a day of shared work, Ikena and Amara sat by a slow pool. He apologized again with fresh humility. She forgave, not because the past vanished, but because he had chosen the harder path. They spoke into the dark about small dreams: cooked food, a simple shelter, perhaps a child who would know both worlds. As seasons turned, Ikena grew skillful at tending the kind's needs. He learned not to take, but to give, mending a roof, learning a healing verse, singing simple songs of thanks at the shrine. He earned small smiles from those who had once watched coldly. The living rhythm of service healed more than the kin expected. Back in KWAM, people spoke of the couple's odd fate and slow transformation. Some judged, some softened. Word spread not as a scandal, but as a strange kind of lesson. To love required learning, and growth was work, not simply feeling. Time gave the villagers a new patience toward what they once feared. When Ikena and Amara occasionally visited the market, a gentle hush fell. People greeted them with renewed warmth. He moved with quiet purpose, she moved with a steadiness that came from being known. Their life was not the one they had first imagined, but it was theirs, stitched from two fabrics into a stronger cloth. Amara sometimes returned to the Ori shrine, now with Ikena by her side. Together they offered thanks for second chances and for the work of patience. The shrine's keeper nodded. The old spirit's voice, if it stirred, seemed satisfied that the village and the forest learned from one another. Years passed and the sharp edges smoothed. Ikena's earlier weakness was no longer a wound, but a memory that taught humility. Amara's life, once split between forms and names, settled into a rhythm of seasons and songs. They shared small happinesses: bread baked, a repaired roof. A stranger shown kindness, and these counted for more than any rumor. And so the tale endured, that secret forms and old magic may reveal themselves when vows are made, but truth and chosen responsibility can shape a different ending. Love that asks work, not just feeling, becomes the home that both worlds can enter. Moral: when truth meets responsibility, redemption follows, and love grows into something stronger than any curse.